Hello guys. So while working with all this, I've been looking at things, and here's what I figured out. There's 1,000 frames. That's way too much information if you ask me. And there should be a way to reduce this information. And what I was thinking is we should have something called frame skipping, if you will. And what I want frame skipping to do is basically every time you skip, I would like you to skip 10 frames instead of just the one. So basically what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to mess around with what this I means. First we're gonna need a numeric control. So create a numeric control. There it is. This says number of frames, and I'm gonna call it frame skipping for now, and we will adjust this later, or we can call it the frame interval. This will not normally, let's see, I think you should be able to set a default value. If I cannot set it here, what I could do, I believe I can do create a variable of it, and then I could create a constant and set it to 1. So now out here it is automatically set to 1. So as you can see, this is 0, right? And if I run it, it should jump to 1. There it is. So now it's set to 1. So now we're jumping frame by frame. So let's look at this and see how we're gonna do this. Visible item, yes, the label's not locked. Size to text is active. Frame interval, and center it. There we go. So we can easily say, okay, let's do every 10 frames. So now it'll show us every 10 frames instead of every 1 frame. That's what I want this to do. Now what this will require is something that will need to be the current frame, right? So here's our frame interval, which is telling us basically how many frames we're gonna be skipping. Now this one, oh, not that one, just this one. This one will set it to 1 initially, and that will also be the first frame that we actually work with. Now I'm gonna want this number to substitute I, right? So I have an I setting, which I will no longer have. Now I will have this new number, which will increase by frame intervals. And how does this work? We will have a shift register of this, and we will have not an array size. What we will have is an array coming in from the outside. So I want the outside to come in with an array with the first number being 1. Actually, no, I want the first number to be, I want it to be 0, right? And then what I want to do is every time you just add the frame interval to the last number of the array. So this indexes, I want this to index the last number. So I will need to get the size of the array, right? And I would like to get that decremented, because remember, the index is always 1 less, and then get that index. Now that I have this index, I would like to add to it the frame interval value, which might change over time. So I'll need to take that into account. And then, after adding the frame interval, I would like to insert this number into this array, and then I'd like this array to move on. There, I can put it this way perhaps. There we go. and then I need this array to move onto the next phase. While this number, I will need that to be our new number to be used. So the first one will be, well, I want the first one to definitely be 0. And again, the reason I'm doing it this way is because I would like to, I want to force the frame interval to be 1 while starting from 0. I could do this by putting it in there, but it's fine. I don't have an issue doing it this way, and I hope no one else does. If anyone has an issue, let me know. There we go, and there we go. And I'm going to put the frame interval up here. There it is. This perfection thing that keeps messing with me. It just keeps messing with me. There we go. So we're going to take this number after adding the frame interval, which is set to 1 by default, and then this data, piece of data, will need to travel all the way to the other end of the earth. And update itself by updating this array. There we go. Let's look at what's going on here. So let's run the code. It will start, auto start is on the first frame. 0.1, okay. 0.2, okay. 0.3, okay. 0.4, okay. There we go. We have all 4 points now. Now, let's say I want to do next frame. Now we're on frame 2. 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. Let's say I want to skip 10 next time. So next frame is now frame 12. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Next frame is 22. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, let's say I want to do 8 for the next one, so we go to 30. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's perfect. Let's say I want to do -5. You can't do negatives. You are protected. Let's do every 5 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Rainbow. Temperature. User defined. Grayscale. Stop. So there we go. Here are our points, which frame number it is at. 1, 2, 12, 22, 30. There we go. Now I'm going to put this data down here. Frame interval. Alright. So, what is next? I hope you guys are learning. Oh, what did I do? I just closed it. Main. There we go. So we can test it from scratch now. So we select a file, let's say this one, and then we go run. And this is where it starts. And you can't see. Oh, there was the issue with the out of image. What are we gonna do about that? Let's set auto start to on. Let's select the points. This is definitely the first point. This is going to be the second point. It's going to be the third point. Now the fourth point is unknown. What do you want to do with unknown? Well, we'd need to add a button to overcome this, or we should add a value that doesn't exist. So what we should do is we should set the xy's have a button that says does not exist, and that would be a -1 xy, or maybe even -10. Yep, let's work on that. So looking at this, we have all these, even the reset. We're gonna have to further complicate this by including by including another 4 buttons that each correspond to does not exist, or we'll call it out of frame. So we can click this button and set it to out of frame. Basically, we'll set it to -1. So that's an out of frame button for each one of these. So if it is out of frame, so point 4 is out of frame, we can click this and that would automatically, let's see where all the buttons are, this one, and this one. There we go. So these are the out of frame buttons. Out of frame, OOF1. So here's OOF1, here's OOF2, here's OOF3, and here's OOF4. So there we go, here are all 4 of them. So what we need to do is we need to run them through as an array, right, and check for errors if multiple ones were clicked when this is gonna execute, and then we will need to check for the number not 0. And this will tell us whether it should be approved or disapproved into the main decision point. So let's move everything back 1. Let's add this to the fold. There we go. That would actually raise everything just a bit. There we go. So now that we have all these buttons here, we need to figure out what they are going to do. and that's not very complex. Basically, we're gonna add 3 was reset, 0 was the default. What we were gonna do is we were gonna go to 3 and add a case after it. Now, what is going to happen here is simple. We are going to add a negative point for this. Let's see how previous number was handled. Previously, we took that. First, we subtracted the number by 1. Let's do that. So we're going to take this new piece of data, subtract it by 1, so that we can have an index system. Now, what we're going to do is what we had done before was delete this from the array and do so on and so on. What we're doing here is simple. We are taking it, we are replacing this part of the array. Which part? This part of the array. And then with what are we replacing it, right? So the data is coming in as a cluster of x and y, as we have done them all back here. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to add this data. Instead of 0, 0, we're going to add, like, let's add -10. That way we would overcome any difficulties. This was -1. And we just need to figure out which array are we dealing with. The bottom one is the original, and the top one is the one that's repeating. We want the repeating one, obviously. But just to double check, I'm going to go to our other case. Yep, so it is the one repeating. And then the image that we're going to take by default is going to be the default case up here. There it is. And that, I believe, is all the data we need. Let's see if this can pass through here. Well, it could, but I'd rather give it its own space. There we go. This should be it. So let's give it a shot. Test. So, okay, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, there's no 0.4. We can set it as out of frame. And that's not working. That's not good. It's not working. Why is it not working? 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, what's the default sends in 0. So it's actually not even processing. Let's add a case after that. Actually, let's delete this case. Let's duplicate this case and give it a 4. Just a small thing that I did that just to save space. So let's run this again and test it. So we have the first point, yes, we have the second point, we have the third point. Well, the fourth point is out of frame. So we set it to negative, next frame. Perfect, it accepted it. Okay, so we can click cancel at any time to come here and look at it. If we keep going with OKs, it will keep going through the next frame. So we should set up a button here, and this time, instead of the auto start system, which we set up here, what I'd like to set up is an auto continue system. So I'm going to call it auto continue. And if anything is cooler than auto start, it's auto continue. That will literally make it super speed to go through the data. So what does auto continue do? Well, if auto continue is true, then, well, we need to set up a point when everything is done. We need to trace our theory. So our theory goes that we run the first option. everything runs through, and when number 1 is done, it will send out a pulse. That pulse tells us that this is done. This light is actually what tells us that we are ready. If we are ready, the thing is, if there was a cancellation, which is over here, which makes this true, we might need to add that into the math. So there should be a kind of redundancy system where if we cancel, this will wait for us, right? This will wait for us for this specific moment, and then it will not work anymore. I hope that makes some sense. So the auto continue will need to be deactivated temporarily until forced back into motion. That's what we're trying to do. So if I put the auto continue function will need to work here and here. So this is going to need to work on 2 different levels. This here seems to be getting more and more complex, so I'm going to move it. I'm going to move this entire system down here where I can keep an eye on it to know what, basically I want to know what I am doing so I don't get confused, because that's what's been going on. We're just jumping too many places, and trying to keep up with it all is not that easy. So here's what we've done. We added these setups, and they jumped over this wire, came over here. This one comes here and sets the true false. This one, I really don't like it. Its position is horrible. Everything about this is horrible. We could probably take it all the way out and just bring it in when we need it, which is probably something I should have done a million times before. That statement is so true that I should do it right now, but I'm not. For some reason, not yet. Okay, so now what are we doing? Now we're working with this auto continue. Maybe I should do the auto continue on a separate video. Yeah, I'm gonna do the auto continue on a separate video because I believe the auto continue is going to be a little more complicated than things that we've been doing so far. So I will get back to you guys in a bit. See you.